Hi there, piano teachers. Fantastic to be back with you again. I'm going to chat to you today about resolutions. And I think you might be thinking that I've lost my marbles a little bit because this is a weird time of year to be talking about resolutions. But I actually think this is one of the best times to set goals and resolutions for your teaching and your business, because January is just pure miserable, at least in this hemisphere, right? And we're all a bit sad. And yes, we set these resolutions, but we're also setting resolutions about running and losing weight and all these other things, going to the park more, whatever it is. And so our piano teaching resolutions can kind of get lost in the mix in January. And they fall off, as do our other resolutions, let's be honest. And then we get to February, and things start to even out a bit. We get into the swing of the new year. And now that we're fully into it, and the days are starting to get longer if you're up here with me in the Northern Hemisphere, and we're starting to see the sun a little bit more often, now is the perfect time to revisit your resolutions and make a new one that's just for your business. And there's another reason why this is the best time of year to do this, because if you are in this hemisphere, you're about to start a new term next September, most likely. That's when most of us run our years to, is September, not January. So when we're going to make changes for our piano teaching business, September is the best time to plan for. And now is the perfect time to plan for September. Because if we're looking ahead to September now, we can make our concrete plans, think about our goals and what we want to change. Then in April and May, we can be putting together our enrollment forms and registration forms and thinking about new students we need to acquire and all that stuff. And that all goes out maybe in May or June, depending where you are and what way you run your studio. And then it's all in action, right? The machine is running. So if we think about this now, we can be proactive and look ahead to the changes we want to make before we're writing those policies. And we can kind of look a bit more at the big picture at this time of year than we can when we're in the midst of creating those enrollment forms. So that's why I wanted you to think about resolutions, spring resolutions for piano teachers right now. I think this is going to be a great exercise. Now, I have a post that I wrote which has 31 New Year's resolutions, which will work great at any time of year. It's at colourfulkeys.ie colourfulkeys.ie/resolution. And it would be a great exercise to go through that now and see if this time of year would be a really good time to do one of those things. I really think a lot of the things on that list as I look through would work perfectly now for the next year. And there's 5 I've picked out for you that I think would be extra wonderful to start thinking about in March, in this month. So the first is to have better communication with your piano parents and your adult students. How could you communicate better? Is this an area you need to work on? For some of us, we have established this, but for a lot of people, this is an area we struggle in. And a lot of the posts I see in my group and in other groups are basically coming down to this issue. Maybe there was a miscommunication. I'm not going to blame anyone, but maybe there was a miscommunication, something that could have been conveyed a little bit more clearly with a little bit more thought, and it would have solved the problem, or the problem would have never happened. So could you be communicating better with your piano parents? That's resolution number 1 that you might want to make as your spring resolution for piano teachers. Resolution number 2 is maybe you want to freshen up your recitals. So this would be a different time frame, but it's March now. A lot of us have recitals in May. Mine's going to be in April this year, but May, June is the most common, right? So do you want to do something different? Is this the year you're going to branch out a little bit? Maybe you've always done different themes, but you're thinking about trying a new venue. Maybe you want to try having like a salon style where people come in and out of your house and they just arrive and go and have snacks and it's more background music. Maybe you want to try having it with a dinner. I've seen a piano teacher who did that. Or maybe you want it to be way more formal and you want to rent a grand piano and go all out this time. You've never managed to do that, but this is going to be the year. that you're going to get the big stage and the grand piano and all that stuff. So is it time to freshen up your recital? That's resolution number 2 that you might want to make. And I just want you to pick one of these, right? Don't try and do all of them, but see if one of them jumps out at you. Number 3 is maybe it's about the right time of year to start focusing on your own practice. Has your practice been lacking? And this kind of ties into the recital as well, because I normally play at my spring recitals and not at my January recitals. And yeah, the spring recitals are what push me to practice something, or I play a lot, right? I play. That's the honest truth. I play. I sight read through stuff and I play stuff I already know. But if I'm going to like learn something properly and memorize it and all that, that usually only happens for the recital. So this is my time of year to up my practice time a little bit and get ready for the recital myself too. So is it the time of year to improve your own practice? Should you get into a better routine and reestablish your practice time so that you can be less of a hypocrite with your students? Okay, so that's 3 resolutions so far that you might want to bring in at this time of year. Number 4 is that it might be time to start thinking about raising your fees. Sometimes piano teachers can be a little bit too nice, a little bit too soft, shall we say, and we don't raise our fees when we should. Now, I did that for years. But the last, since I got really serious about my business and started teaching full time, I have been raising my fees every single year. And I think it is so important. I think you should be doing it. Even if it's 1%, and that's all you should be raising it. If you work out that you only want to go up 1%, that's fine, do that. But I think it's important that your parents and your students see the pattern that fees do not stay the same. Because otherwise, when you do need to make that huge jump in price, and you will, because otherwise you're just not paying yourself properly. You're just decreasing in income every single year if you don't do it. So when you do have to make that jump, it's going to be a shock, and you are going to get people balking at it and quitting if they're not used to this idea of you raising your fees. They just might not think of it as something that could happen. So it's a really good idea to get into the habit of doing this every year. And if you haven't done it for several years, you might have to make that big jump, or start making medium jumps and making them every year from now until you get to the target of where you should be. Because if you haven't raised your fees, you are not making the same money as when you started. First of all, you should be making more because you're more experienced and all that stuff, but you're not even making the same because inflation. So your money is worth less now. So if you haven't raised your fees in a while, or if you raise them a couple of % every year, but it's time to actually take that jump because you've now got a diploma or whatever it is, now is the time to start thinking about that, because you need to put that into action and be diligent about preparing people for that raise. Now, it doesn't have to be too far in advance. You're not going to tell them about it now, but it's going to need to go into your registration forms and your communication for the new year. So it's a great idea to have it in your head now. And the other reason it's a great idea to have it in your head now is because if you resolve it, if you call it a resolution, you're going to stick to it. Or at least I hope you will. I would like you to write it down somewhere. If this is you, that you're reluctant to raise your fees, write it down somewhere and stick to it this time. And if you really resolve to do it, it will happen. Whereas if you leave it to the last minute when you're putting together the re-enrollment stuff, you might just chicken out. So let's do it now. And if that's not you, I have a final 5th possible resolution for you, which is that you might need to create a new wind down routine for your day. Bit of an odd one, but if you find yourself getting stressed out and not sleeping, there was a post in the Vibrant Music Studio Teachers group recently from someone who was saying, I must not be the only one who's still buzzing sometimes at night and I can't get to sleep because I'm thinking about my students. And that does happen, but it shouldn't be happening too often. And you shouldn't be letting your studio life and your teaching encroach on your family time and your evening routine and, getting yourself to bed and getting some proper rest. So it might be time to put in place a wind down routine, just a system where I put away all the games, I put away my repertoire, I get out the folders for the next day, and then I switch off the light in my studio, or maybe it transforms into a living room as mine does. So if you are struggling with stress in the evenings, maybe that's something to think about. Now, there are tons more of these in the post, so colourfulkeys.ie/resolution, or I'll put a link in the comments here. And I'd love to hear what your resolutions are for spring. What are your spring resolutions? Are you going to try and have better communication with your parents, freshen up your recitals, improve your own practice time, raise your fees, commit to raising your fees, or implement a wind down routine so you're not stressed out in the evening? Or one of the other ideas for my post, or your own idea. I'd love to hear what your resolution is. Write it down in the comments because we can help you stick to it then. And I'll catch you again next week. Bye for now.